Hey guys, welcome to the Casey Catch Up. Stoked to have Alex Aguera, the founder of Go Foil and really modern day foiling, join me for the call this time. We spoke about his beginnings, how he got into water sports, and how he basically invented foiling, modern day foiling, with teaming up with Kai Lenny, and how that whole process of him learning to downwind went. We also go into a bunch of stuff on how he learned to downwind himself, how he learned to foil himself, and the process of him learning to adjust his foils to increase performance. We also go into a bunch of power dinging stuff, him learning the downwind foil, being led by Dave Kalama, and the difference between power dinging, which is like racing downwind, versus free winging downwind, which is, more flowing and surfing, whereas power dinging is more of like a sailing sort of thing. So thanks Alex for tuning in. I did get up super early for this chat. It was about 5:45. And I did shower and I washed my face and I got ready to go, but I was still super tired. You'll see when you watch the next bit, and you can hear it too. So for a bit of a laugh, why don't you guys comment a time within the chat that you think I finally woke up, because I was pretty asleep to start with. So yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in and enjoy the chat with Alex Aguera, Mr. GoFoil.
Thanks for joining us. It's early my time, but it's about, 10 a.m. your time over there in Hawaii? So
yeah, 10 a.m.
Yeah, I got up bright and early for you, so it's good. It's good to have a chat, hear from Mr. GoFoil himself. But yeah, it's been a while since we've caught up, but I'm loving using the GoFoil stuff, and sounds like you got some exciting stuff to release too. But I wanted to start with a bit of a background into how you got into water sports to start with.
Into water sports, let's see. We were doing a vacation down in the Virgin Islands. My dad and my mom took us on a vacation as a family vacation back in 1975, and we're on sailboats and we're going from island to island, hopping in the British Virgin Islands. It's a fun thing to do. But our captain had this windsurfer thing, and he would cruise around in the one, it's called Sofer's Hole. It's one of the little, anchorages over there where we took off with the boat. We're like, man, what the heck is that? And my dad, asked when we got back to the mainland and to the US, and he called up Windsurfing International and got a hold of Hoyle Schweitzer and said, hey, I'd like to buy a couple of those for my kids, to try and, try this new sport of windsurfing. And he goes, hey, if you buy 6 of them, we'll make you a dealer. And that's how it all started.
Wow. No way. So that was over in the Atlantic Ocean. And how'd you end up over in Maui?
In Maui, I was, I got into windsurfing in 1975. We were in the original windsurfer design, and we did a bunch of the races. We were going to the world championships and the nationals and all that kind of stuff. And we were really into windsurfing. That was all, our whole life had now started revolving around windsurfing. And then we were at the world championships in 79 in Florida, Clearwater, which is where I come from. And Mike Waltz, who I had already known from a couple of the big races over the years, came in and goes, Alex, you got to come see this place. I found this new place. The wind blows all the time. There's waves. There's nobody around. And what he was describing was, Hokipa back in the early days. And I said, okay, we'll plan a trip, because we had to go to the Pan Am World Cup in Kailua that year. So we planned it all around going to see Mike early. And after I went to Maui, it was 6 weeks with my brother. We're with Mike Waltz at his house up in Haiku, which is really close to the cannery nowadays. The house is not long gone, but we're in an old funky house. And for 6 weeks, the wind never dropped below 15 knots. We're like, oh my God, you're kidding me. Because we're in Florida, where you're just hoping the wind will blow, once a week or once every 2 weeks, and get to do something. So I was like, I'm going to sell everything and I'm moving to Maui. So by 1982, I'd moved my whole thing over there to, pursue being a professional windsurfer.
Awesome. Great story. And I think a lot of windsurfers, Maui was the mecca, and kind of still is. Is that right in saying that it's still a bit of a mecca for windsurfing?
Yeah, if you're in the top elite windsurfing crew, Hokipa is still the main windsurfing break in the world, I would say.
Yeah, it's amazing to just sit and watch Hookeeper when it's windy, when all the windsurfers are out there, because the stuff that the windsurfers are doing nowadays, and probably you guys were doing back in the day too, is ridiculous. You would never think that that's possible even on a windsurfer, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there, you got into kite foil racing. Is that right?
First, we started doing kiting. And then, you know, once kiting came up, it took me a while to get into kiting. I watched for the first year or two with Elliot and Lou Wyman and Laird and Manu Bertin. All these guys were learning how to kite at Hookeepa. They had funny reels on their wings and everything. And there was no rules yet. We could still launch from Hookeepa. And I'm like, I'm not doing this until you guys could get back to the beach you started at. You know, it took them a while before they could go, 90 degrees and get back.
Yeah.
So after a year or two, those guys started getting back to where they started. And then I jumped into kiting from watching. I think one of the main things was watching Flash back in the early days, boosting big jumps and coming down real soft. And I'm like, wow, I want to do that, because our windsurfing, you get that high, you come down hard. It's, there's some crashing and you jump 30 feet in the air and it's like, oh no, this is not going to be fun on the landing. He was making it look easy. So that got me into kiting. But then after years and years, I got out of kiting, started playing a lot of golf, and I was just windsurfing again, long story short. Then I get back into kite racing because Jesse Richmond told me, he goes, hey, can you design me some boards? And I was always a windsurf race board designer at the time, where I was making it for some of the top guys in the world. After I stopped being a pro racer, I was designing boards for Kevin Pritchard and Micah Buzainis. And Jesse knew this. He's like, hey, can you design us a board? I'm getting beat by girls on the race course. So that kind of got me back into kiting again. So I went kite racing, then kite foil racing a couple years later. And that's how I got into the foils, was from kite foiling. It was a funny story with that, is that we were always doing kite speed races in Martha's Vineyard with a friend of mine, Rob Douglas, who used to be the world record holder for sailing. He went 56 knots or something on the 500-meter course with a kite. This is before, they broke his record with, what was the name of the other boat? Sail Vestas Rocket, which now goes amazing fast. But anyway, he was the world record holder, and he gives me this foil. He says, hey, I'll give you this foil if you make me a board for it. And I go, okay, we'll do a trade. I'll make you a kite foil board. And I got the foil, and that's how I started. He gave me this rickety old foil that kept falling apart on me, and I had to keep putting it back together. And that's how I got into making foils, because I had to start from scratch, figuring out how to build this thing, because it kept falling apart.
Yeah. Perfect. That's a really good segue to go into. And then fast forward to 2012, 2013, and Kai releases his video of him using your foil downwinding on a race board.
Yeah, that was actually 2016. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah,
it seems like
actually.
It's distant past, but it was really in 2016.
Wow. Yeah, 5 years ago.
Yeah. What happened was I had given Kai some of my kite foiling stuff for him we tried to put it on one of his stand-up surfboards to ride in the waves and see if he could paddle it downwind or whatever he could do with it. But we were using a kite foil, and it didn't work that well. And then he comes back to me about 6 months later and he goes, hey, Alex, we got to work on this downwind foiling. I think I can do it. I go, well, what happened with the kite foil? And he goes, well, it was kind of dangerous and I didn't have enough lift. And I go, okay, let me try and think of something and I'll see what I can come up with, and then we'll try it again. And so I went 2 weeks coming up with all kinds of ideas. And I'm like, I never thought about it before, but I'm thinking, hey, we're going to make big, fat, thick foil sections that will lift up, a bigger load at slower speeds, basically, like aircraft wings, on the big, jets that transport tanks and stuff. I'm like, yeah, this will probably work. But nobody had tried it before. It's like I couldn't believe, all the Frenchies. They were the big guys with our kite foils back in the day, and we were only interested in racing. It was like thin foils. Let's go as fast as possible. We were always trying to get faster. We weren't trying to get slower. So I worked on this thing, reshaping one of the kite foils, and it ended up being the original Kai model foil. And I call up, or I tried to get a hold of Kai. I'm texting him because he wasn't answering the phone. And I'm like, finally get a text back, and he goes, "Oh, I'm in California. I'm on my way to France to do the indoor windsurfing with Robbie Nash." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, when you get back, we'll check it out. I'll try and ride it in the meantime." So I go down to Sugar Cove and go out, and I remember paddling out on my stand-up. I put a tuttle box about 24 inches forward on my 8.6 original stand-up board that I was riding at the time. And my dentist Barkley was there, and the Finn and Jeffrey were in the water. And I go out and I proceed to catch the first wave. I get up and I've got lift now. So we got rid of one of the problems. I was like, holy shit, this thing comes up. But then I would rail over and almost see the wings on my face. So I was like flipping it over, and I'm like, oh no. And then I was like, now I understand why Kai said it was dangerous. So I'm like, okay, back to the shop, cut the mast in half. It went from my 38, 39-inch kite foil to an 18-inch mast the next day. I go back down to lowers at Kanaha and try it again the next day. And I make a little video with my GoPro where I'm actually foiling now. I'm kind of in control and I'm cruising. I go like, 50 yards, and it's like, oh my God, this is working. And I send the video, I put it on Facebook, and I tag Kai. And Kai's like, all right, I'm going to try it right when I get back. And then what happened was Kai came back. We put him on my same board, the whole same setup. And within about an hour, Kai is doing stuff that we take for granted now. But the first time you see somebody take off, they're not even close to the peak. They're way over on the left or the right, come back across the peak in front of the whitewater, go over to the other side. And you're like, what the hell is he doing? He's not even surfing anymore. He's all over the place. And the first time you see that, you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? And it was just amazing, and I was like, hey, maybe I should patent this, this could get big. And then about a week goes by, and he's like, okay, he's trying to talk Robbie Nash into being able to use one of the 12.6s, and we can put a tuttle box in it. So we can use it for what the ultimate plan was. He wanted to foil downwind. So finally, Robbie gives him permission. Okay, you can experiment with this one of his boards. So we put a tuttle box in it. Kai says, hey, I think it's right about where I'm standing. That's about 48 inches from the tail. He goes, I think right there is going to be the spot. So we put it at 48 inches, and he goes down to the harbor, and he comes back with this text going, Houston, we have a problem. And I'm like, oh, what the heck does that mean? And he's like, I'm getting going plenty fast enough to foil, but the tail is hitting the water and it's stopping me from going up. I can't get up. So I recommended, hey, let's chop the tail off, and the tuttle box will be at 24 inches like it is on the other board. And you'll be able to get up. And he's like, no, let's just put another tuttle box in. So I go, okay, we'll just put another tuttle box in. Just come to the shop in the morning. So Kai shows up at the shop in the morning. He goes, I think you're right. Let's just cut the tail off. So we cut the tail off and put a little diamond tail on the original one. We're trying to, get something to make it release a little better. And then it's history after that. About a week later, Kai is going so fast downwind on some of his videos that he decides, I'm going to make a video and put it on Facebook. And the first thing he did was put a picture up. And that's the first thing that he released. There was a picture of him, and he's foiling downwind, and everybody is making comments. Oh, this is some of my old buddies that are kite foilers and stuff are chiming in, going, that is not possible. I'm trying to give him a French accent because I don't want to say who it was, but yeah, that is not possible. We have already tried this and it does not work. That is Photoshop. And about a day or two later, Kai releases the video of the same thing. And now you could see that he's actually doing it. And then a couple of weeks later, I go looking for those comments, and my buddies have all deleted their comments. Like, that wasn't me, man. I didn't say that. So it went crazy. He got 5 million views in 1 week on that. And I was like, well, then everything changed about foiling with surfing and downwind and everything after that.
Yeah, I remember I was in Maui at the time, and I just raced Olokai, so the stand-up downwind race, and we're all looking for results, and Kai's photo and video comes up, and we're like, what's this? And it's just like everyone forgot about the race. Everyone's looking at Kai's video and thinking, how's he doing this? And yeah, it was one of those moments, that everyone remember, that I remember, that it's like that changed everything. And crazy. What a story. It's changed everything.
The one thing that I've got the business in with my brother-in-laws. So I asked them, they make all the canoes and the 1-mans and 2-mans and unlimited canoes. He's got a big business doing that. He's got a couple of different, boat builders that are all built at the factory. And I go to Michael and I go, hey, Michael, I got this new thing that's working pretty good. You want to build the foils at the factory? And then I showed him that video, and Kai is going by Dave Kalama and Junior in the 2-man canoe. That's one of his canoes. Yeah. And that's the fastest thing in the water over here, downwind. And he goes right by them. He's like, oh my God, are you kidding? What's going on here? He goes, okay, we're all in. We're going to do this. That video convinced Michael Giblin, my brother-in-law, to, hey, we'll pursue this.
Yeah. That's good. You got that footage then. Yeah. Kai,
yeah. He couldn't believe that.
Yeah. You actually, it was probably 6 months later, I was over in Maui for a stand-up race, and you were, I think we were down Kite Beach or somewhere, and I was introduced to you by the Spencer boys, and he gave me my first, Vinny and I, a Brazilian kid, you lent a board and a foil to us, and we just, dicked around all week before the lead up to the race, and it wasn't the best race preparation because we were just eating shit for the whole week, and we managed to get enough of a glide. By the end, I said, Alex, I'm buying one. Where can you, like, oh, well, production's not quite there yet, but we'll send you one in a couple months. And I was like, here's my money, take it, whatever. And then that whole summer back home, January, January, February, I was just turned foil brain. I was just doing nothing else. All I did was foil. And I think a lot of people have felt that exact same thing. So thank you, mate. It's been a wild ride so far. And I guess let's talk a little bit about your experience foiling. So you started surf foiling, and then I remember when I went to Maui, I think it must have been 2017 July, you were downwinding on this, I want to call it 10 foot by, I don't know, it was a rectangle. It was a rectangle of a board.
Yeah.
I think that's my first flight downwind with that board.
Yeah, that was some of the early days of me trying to go downwind. Kai made it look so easy that it's like, oh yeah, I could do this. Well, it isn't that easy. And especially Kai was using our original Kai wing, which is not very big too. And he would get up on that thing and just fly. And it's like, I had no way that I could get up. So I'm making all these boards, trying to, that was one of the early boards where I thought, okay, I'm going to make it a little bit shorter than what Connor was riding, some 12.6 or something that we had put a total box in, and he could do it. Of course, Connor and Kai are two of the best paddlers like you in the world. It's like, you're thinking that you could do it. No, there's no way I could do it. In fact, I never got up on that board more than like 10 feet. It was like, oh God, this is a struggle. I needed a way of braking to push me in to actually get up. It's funny. We had a story with, we had a shark attack problem with that board when we were first riding it. I couldn't get up. I give it to Connor. Connor takes off. He's foiling all down the coast, goes about a quarter mile, turns around to come back to me because I can't get foiling on his 12.6 or whatever that blue board was. And on the way back, some shark grabs onto the tail wing on his board, trying to break it off. And Connor falls half in the water, half on the board. He was like, this was a 10-foot shark. And I'm like, I didn't realize what was going on. I finally paddled down to those guys. I'm so far behind. And it was him, Ryan, and I think Zane. And they're all like, oh, shark, there was this. So we do an hour paddling down to Sugar Cove. Nobody's foiling anymore and just looking around going, is he still hunting us or what? So I go to the shop and painted him a different color than black the very next day. And I was like, no more black foils. Because it looked like a stingray underwater.
Yeah.
It looked like bait.
Okay. Yeah. So the original ones were black, and then you've changed them all to sort of red and blue now.
Yeah, we got blue and reds, and they were always, it's been blue or red, always blue or red.
Yeah, not black like a stingray. Yeah.
Yeah, a stingray. Like the whole way we were paddling, I'm looking at the foil, going, "That looks like a stingray." You know, it was like,
Yeah,
no, there's a reason why that guy bucked.
Yeah.
Plus, it was the early days where a shark hasn't seen a foil yet. You know, so he was probably curious. Now we don't have that problem because they've probably seen it a bunch. You know, and they're like, "Oh, that's one of those things that doesn't taste very good." You know.
Yeah. Some of those
In the beginning, they were like, "Hey, I'm gonna sample that. I've never seen that before."
Yeah. So so I tried to downwind the Kai foil over in Western Australia, the King of the Cut run, which is probably the best run they've got. I was trying on I think it was like a 7 foot, like a surf's up, and I think I got up maybe twice in about 8Ks. It was horrible. Like Kai is, Kai's a freak. It made it look so easy, and Matt Nodich and I were trying to get going, and yeah, like I said, I got up once, and I didn't even get close to linking a bump. It was it didn't put me off, but I was humbled, that's for sure. And then I remember coming back and you saying, "Oh, we got this new wing. It's called the Maliko. It's a bit bigger." And that first blue Maliko, which was pretty small still, was the first one that I learned to downwind on. And then the new sort of curved Malikos came out, and then the GLs, and the rest is history. It's sort of exploded since then, and the wings just get better and better.
Right.
What was the first foil that you learnt to downwind on, like that you made yourself, obviously?
I think I couldn't really get up until I got onto a Maliko 200 and a Maliko 280. It was like I needed something giant to actually get up. I'd get up on the 280, but it was so slow I couldn't go anywhere. It's like, okay, I'd connect for about 100 yards, and then I'm dead now. I've been pumping so hard and paddling. It's like, okay, I'm done for the rest of the run.
Especially the Maliko run, everything's so fast. Yeah.
Well, in the beginning, we weren't doing the full Maliko run. What we do, we go out of Kuau. We figured out that we go Kuau to Sugar Cove. So if it all goes bad, we just blow into the beach. It's like, okay, it's about an hour and 20 minutes if you don't get up at all, and you just you can sit on your board and you can blow into the beach. So in the beginning, it was really, really hard for me. And even Dave, when Dave was first learning, he must have gone maybe 20 times. And I remember him telling me, if it doesn't start working out soon, I'm quitting. It's over. I can't do this. And then one day he like connected. He got about 3 minutes on a glide. He goes, "Oh my God, I kind of got a glide today," And then a couple days later, it's like I've linked up, 3 or 4 different 5-minute, link ups. And he was just like, it started to get better. But even Dave, was like, "Oh, I'm about ready to quit this." That's how hard it was in the beginning with the equipment we had.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing how I remember when I went from the original Maliko to the Maliko 200, it made it so much easier. And then the Maliko 280, I was paddling up in the flat. I was racing guys on stand-ups, being like, "Come on, guys, let's go."
I remember that one race you were winning with the Maliko 280 in the flat water.
Yeah. Fully cheating. It was it was it blew a lot of people's minds. That was the first time a lot of people saw foiling, and that was a cool way to sort of show it off in the full-on flat water. But yeah, so when did it click for you? Because you said Dave had a bit of trouble. And I remember I think it was probably maybe 2018, and you were downwinding.
Yeah, I think it was about 2018 when I first started to, get some good runs in. Because I went a whole year with just suffering. I'd do like 20 different runs that year, and not do very well. And my wife had come pick me up, and she's like, "Well, is he in a good mood today or a bad mood?" Usually it was a bad mood. Like I'm not getting anywhere. And I was always changing, something to try and see if it would get better. Changing boards, changing tail wings, changing front wings. And then we made a Maliko that I redid the foil section so it wasn't so thick. So it was a little bit faster to where I could keep up with the waves. And then finally I was starting to go pretty far downwind.
And you're always doing the Maliko run? Did you ever do any Kihei runs?
Yeah, the Kihei run is really fun. That's a lot easier. When it's a good day, it's much easier. The waves are real steep and they're closer together, and it's easier to stay with it because it's moving a little slower. so you can paddle into it. Where the Maliko run on the real good days, you can't catch those big giant bumps. They're going way too fast. You got to catch a little one, get up to speed before you try to drop in on one of those bombs. And in the first days, we didn't know that. It was like, oh, here comes a big one. Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's like, no, don't waste your time. And finally, you figure out that you need to know, you have to have some experience with it to feel the glide, whether you're getting lifted up and whether you should try to go on that wave. Otherwise, you waste all your energy and now you're done. You know, the rest of the run, especially at my age, you know, it was like, oh, I try about 10 times to get going. And then I'm like, okay, I'm cruising the rest of the way. I'm just paddling into the beach now. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's a learning experience for sure. And you know, the Kihei run is such a special, like Maliko and Kihei, they're probably two of the best downwind runs you can do in the world, right at your doorstep. And the Maliko you think would be better because there's more energy, there's more, you know, water moving, and then but the Kihei is like just so perfectly lined up that it makes it easier for sure.
It's groomed way for, if you haven't, you know, been able to do stand-up paddling, you go to Kihei on the good days, it makes it way easier to get, you know, something out of your first runs, you know.
And that's the same for, I guess, anywhere in the world. Like if you think about an ocean run with lots of swell or a bay run with lots of wind, the bay run with lots of wind is going to be better, or the ocean run with less swell and more wind is going to be better because there's like less interference, especially when you're starting. And as you get better, it seems like the windier it is and the more swell, you can kind of start to tap into the ocean swells as you get better. But starting out, the ocean swell is just a distraction.
Yeah, exactly. It is a distraction. You're looking at the wrong stuff that you should be trying to catch. You need that little teeny one, you know, to push you and catch you. And it's easier to find that inshore, you know, like at the gorge or something. They got steep, you know, steep little waves, and it has something to do with, you know, Kihei having a shallower water depth, so less of a fetch to build up, so it doesn't have those big spread apart, fast moving swells. So it's definitely shorter chops are easier for the beginner.
Yeah, and I think even as you get going, like I find the shorter period stuff is almost more fun because you can kind of surf a little. You're not running over them as much. You can kind of surf a bit more, and you're not going as fast, but it doesn't matter because you're just loving it. It's easy to read. You can kind of surf it a bit more. There is something about the ocean runs where you just hook onto an ocean swell and you just go so fast. Just a couple of days ago, I took out the TKR 170 and downwinded that for about 20 kilometers, and it was crazy how fast you can go straight with it up and over swells. It wants to go faster than anything else you can find, it seems. And as soon as you go slow, it's like, get me going fast again, you know, trying to pump it. It's amazing.
I don't know how you ride that thing. That thing is so small.
Yeah.
So I asked that because, like, you got to be a hell of a paddler to get that thing going.
So I tried paddling it up once, and I almost got stuck out to sea. So I decided I'm not going to paddle, I'm going to wing. And so I'm winging, deflating, and I ride the bumps for as long as I can. And if I come down, I've got a pump in my backpack. And I pump up the wing, and I get up again, and I find that's probably a safer bet than trying to paddle that wing up because it is so small. And so that's something I'm exploring, like to test wings downwind. It's an option. It's not perfect. It's not for everyone.
But you've got options to get back to shore if it all goes wrong.
Exactly, and especially the last couple of days, the wind's been a little bit offshore. So with a paddle, you get a little bit worried if you're starting to head out to sea. With a wing, you're like, it's okay. I can just wing back to shore. It's not an issue. Yeah. So that's been.
I saw your videos. That's pretty cool. Just okay, we put my wing in my backpack, and then if I need it again, I'll pull it out.
Yeah. So, and that's with the paddle, but I found I don't even have to put the wing in the backpack anymore because you just hold it under your arm like this, packed up. You know, by putting it in the backpack, you've just got to do one more thing. If you come down, you've got to take it out of the backpack. So I was like, oh, what if I just hold onto the wing and hold it under my arm? If I come down, I just grab the pump and pump it up. That's not too bad.
It's your little rugby ball. You're going down the coast.
Yeah, it's like a rugby ball, exactly. Try to wrap it up as best you can. Yeah.
Good.
So that's getting a bit off topic, but I guess you when I was in 2018, you were doing heaps of downwind runs, and you were on the Maliko 200. what are you using now downwind? Because I know you do still paddle a little bit downwind, but you're more into the winging at the moment. But when your last downwinder, what equipment were you using?
The last downwinder, I was on the PNL 185, and then there's a newer one that'll come out that I'm testing that's gonna be similar size to the PNL 185 that you like. That I'm trying to see if how that one's doing downwind. Dave liked it downwind. He did really well. It was really good in the slower days when it was light wind. And then I seem to do pretty well on it too. But just Dave baffles me with how fast he goes. It doesn't matter what wing he's on.
He just gets momentum or something. He just hooks. I remember, going with him. And we did a Kia run with you and Dave, probably when I was over there last. And you and Dave took a while to get up, and I'm like, oh, this could be a long run. And I'm just sort of zigzagging. And then you get up, and then Dave gets up. And Dave just, in the small bumps, he's sort of laboring a little bit. And then all of a sudden, he just took off. And I'm like, Alex, see ya. I'm chasing Dave.
I'm going to try to stay with him.
Try to stay with him.
Watch that guy.
Yeah. Once he gets going and he gets a good speed, like it's I guess it's reading the bump and then holding your speed for keeping it up high on the mast and maintaining speed through all the bumps. But he was, you're starting with him like, oh, this guy's going to take forever. And then he gets going and it's like, I can hardly see him anymore. He's a dot on the horizon. Yeah. It was cool to do a downwinder with you guys. And then what board are you using? Because that's something a lot of people have struggled with. And I guess, tell me about the progression. On that board I first started on was like a 10-foot aircraft carrier, I called it. And you just put a little bit of rocker in it. You're like, try this, James. You're like, doesn't work. And then, and then now what are you on? Because I know Dave's on a pretty narrow board.
Yeah, Dave's on a pretty narrow board. He always rides these. They're really thick, they're narrow, and they're kind of gunny looking. He can ride the same board prone paddling when he's got those paddles on that he plays with.
Yeah.
And
have you played with that?
No, that's a little technical for me. I can barely stand up, off of my knees anymore. And it's like, you got to be able to pop up super fast and get it going, because that first couple pumps is critical.
Super important.
And if you can't pop up and start going immediately, it's like you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
But Dave's really good at it. And his son, Austin, just pops up like nothing and takes off. But anyway, his board is narrow. It's fairly long, and he can paddle it at the same time, with a regular paddle. So he's got something a little bit different. Mine's a little bit longer when I'm on now. I'm always on something that's at least 6 feet long.
Yep.
The one board I have is 6'6", the other one's 6'2", I think. So I need something that I can paddle just to get up. Because once I'm up, I could pretty much do the whole run, as long as I don't wipe out. But the main thing is I got to get up. So I put my feet really far forward so I could drive it and get down that, that trough when it's dropping out below you. That you got to chase that at the right time. Yeah. And I just need to be able to paddle as good as possible. So once I'm up, I'm not super fast by any means, but I can make the run. Yeah. Yeah. And then, so how wide is your board? Because that's something a lot of people are asking. My board is, one of them is 26 and one of them's 25 inches wide. So 6'6" by 25 and probably 6'2" by 26. Yeah. 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 That's Dave's are closer to 22 and 23. They're pretty narrow. His are thicker, but they're really narrow. Yeah, and I think that from a race board sort of perspective, the width makes a big difference, and I think the length does too, because the length gives you a bit of stability. So everyone went down to I think the Spencer boys are on like 5'6" or 5'7". Really small boards. I went down to 5'10". I've come back up to 6'0", and that's what I seem to like, 6 by 24. But I think for people that are learning, longer and narrower, below 7 foot still, but then narrower than 26, I think is depending on people's balance. If your balance is better, I think you go as narrow as you can. But it's been really interesting, because the first board I downwinded on was your one, and then I got Sonova to make me one, and it was 7'2" by 25, I think. But it was a rectangle. It was a square, because we wanted a bit of stability, and that thing paddled up crazily well, just because it was narrow and long.
And then we went, okay, well, no one's doing this anymore. We've sort of gone the wrong way. We went back to short and fat. And then, you know, and Dave's boards were like 4 foot something by 30 something wide. Those squares that he was in the surf. And now he's gone back to stretching it back out again. So I find it really interesting, the progression of everything.
Yeah, definitely the longer, narrower boards paddle in a little bit better. If you can stand on them, they definitely paddle better. And it's all about getting that. You got to get up to about 5 miles an hour, you know, so you can get up, stomp on your tail, get up. But if you don't get up to 5 miles an hour, it's like you're struggling just to pop it up. You know, you got to get that first initial boost.
Yeah, and I guess there is also the foil makes a big difference too, and I recommend a lot of people to start using the Maliko 280 just so they can get going. And I know you say it's really slow, especially for a Maliko run. I'd agree with you, but for like a little bay run or like a beginning of a Kihei run, there's nothing worse than not getting up on a downwind run. I think we can all agree on that.
Exactly.
But if you can get up on the Maliko 280 and start to link a couple bumps, and sure, everything's probably going a little bit quicker than you. Actually, the first race I did in Australia was a race down in Victoria, and it was mainly a surf ski race and then a few stand-ups. And no one that I was competing with, so I'm like, I'm going to use the foil. And the winds didn't really show up, and the first kilometre was flat water. And then you turn the can and the wind slowly built as you went. It was about 12 or 13 kilometers, so 8 or 9 miles. And the gun went off and I got started on the Maliko 280 and I got started off the go, and then a jet ski went past and I'm like, oh, goody. Went across to the jet ski and I was pumping along, and then I got to the first mark before any other surf ski did, and all the surf ski guys were so pissed off because there was money to the first mark. It was like $100 for the first person to the mark, and I knew this. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I stopped at the first mark because I was just so tired. I was
got my $100. Okay, you guys go.
I sat down on my board for about 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, so I wonder if I can catch him. And I so slowly paddled out to sea, got going on the 280. Started linking a few bumps, and then by about 5 kilometers in, I started passing all the main group, and I saw 2 guys up front. I'm like, I might be able to pass them. 2 kilometers to go, I passed the first guy, and I'm like, hey mate, how good's this? And he's paddling and looks at me. He's like, just like so grumpy. And I go flying past him. I beat him by about 3 or 4 minutes in the end, and it was such a weird finish line because all the surf ski guys didn't want to talk to me. And all the surf guys were like, how'd you go? And all this. And yeah, it was a funny experience because all the surf ski guys were just so
wow.
Someone could go faster than them. And I was on the biggest foil that you can basically paddle. Even still, probably the Maliko 280. I haven't seen anything too much bigger than that.
I don't think there is one bigger than that one.
So that's
the newer one too, that, back then you probably had the heavier one. Now they're a lot lighter because the cores are a lot lighter. So that foil now is like 2 pounds lighter. It almost foils up without you doing anything.
Yeah, well, that's
so much lift.
Yeah,
it floats to the surface. It's hard. Like if you got it on a small board, that thing will turn up sideways, and you can't get it back underwater again. It's got so much flotation.
Yeah,
I haven't been on one in a long time. I wonder if I could actually get up in flat water. I doubt it, but
I sold mine, but I'm using that prototype, the high aspect prototype you sent me a while ago. And that's what I'm using in the flat water a little bit. But yeah, the people I'm coaching, I always recommend the 280 because yes, it seems slow for a foil, but it's still quicker than anything else on the water, under paddle power anyway. So it's really interesting. It feels sluggish once you're up and going, but I think it is still possible in small bumps that it's very easy to link and do an entire run downwind without coming down. And that's what I always say. That's the first goal. If you can downwind and do your entire run without coming down, or if you do come down, get up quickly again, then you're going to be happy. If you go too small a foil, you'll never get up and you'll never want to do it again.
Exactly. That's one of the things. We've had a couple people over here recently. We're trying to get, stand up again. And they're like, if they don't get gratification, you want to quit. So better to go too big a foil in the beginning just to make sure you get up. At least there's some gratification.
Yeah. and now you've done a lot of winging, and that's sort of the new thing. It seems like, and I understand why. You know, it's way easier to get going. Once you're up, if you come down, you can get up going again easily. If you can use a smaller wing, so you're going faster. So tell me about what you've been working on. You know, downwinding with your wing and sort of playing around with that.
Well, like I was talking before, there's two different styles of going downwind winging. We do more of the fun style over here on Maui most of the time, where we like to go catch those big, bumps that we normally would stand up paddle on and just luff on them and just surf them down the coast. And then when you run out of gas, you sheet in again and go again. But most of the time, all of us are playing around and doing that. But if it comes to a race, it's more like, sheet in, haul ass, put up the biggest hand wing you can, the smallest foil that you can, and just fly. So that's what happened in the race this past weekend, that we went from, luffing down the coast to, okay, who's the fastest down the coast? And a lot of these people, we had over 50 wingers entered the race, and the Department of Transportation found out about this and said, hey, we don't want you guys coming into the harbor. You could have problems with our boat traffic. There was a boat supposed to leave at 2:00. And they're like, okay, you guys got to go to Kanaha. We don't want you guys coming in here. It's just going to be helter-skelter, wings all over the place, and tugboats going, oh my God,
Yeah.
So we ended up racing, and the usual suspects, there was Finn and Jeffrey Spencer. Jeffrey ends up winning on the wing. My nephew Austin won on the kite foil. I've got a kite racing foil that we make that he was riding, and he won the overall, but it was all about the wings. It's more like, okay, who's got bragging rights in all this new sport of winging? So Jeffrey ends up winning. Finn was second, I was third, and Alan was fourth. So it's the guys that really practice a lot trying to go fast. We're more like Finn and Jeffrey did great last year, and of course they did good again this year. They're really, they're 40 something years younger than me. They got plenty of energy. They practice together all the time. It reminds me of me and my brother when we were windsurfers. We were two brothers. They were real young and always practicing against each other. And you were like two of the fastest guys in the world, and you just feed off of each other. So if your training partner is one of the fastest guys in the world and you're one of the fastest guys in the world, you just start leaving, everybody else behind. So it's a good training regimen that those two brothers have.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And, on the Maliko run, and you said this, it's been a super windy summer, so they're only getting quicker. Well, the
beginning of the race wasn't that windy, but that really helped those guys, because they're taking pretty big wings. They're lighter, and they just started going in the beginning. It was like, oh no, this is going to be a long race. I'm never going to see those two guys again.
So what size hand wing were you using? Because that's always one of the things I'm wondering.
Basically, you want to take the biggest thing you can hold on to without crashing downwind. So I took a 5.5 wing and a really small front wing, which is it's about a 650. It's the TKR 80, but it's the newer version. And Alan had the regular TKR 80, which is the 650 square centimeters.
Yeah.
So that's what we were riding. But Finn and Jeffrey one-upped us, and I think they had a little bit smaller foil on. So it was like, oh no, I thought I had a small foil on. I think I should have gone smaller.
Yeah. And when you're when you're having fun down the coast, so when you're like free winging, like or luffing, are you using the same small foil, or are you using a bigger foil? I would assume.
No, I like to use a bigger foil. So it depends on how much I want to glide. If I really want to glide, I'll put on something like 1250 centimeters, which is like our NL 160. I can glide forever on it. And usually your hand wing, you can afford to go a little smaller now, and you can control it while you're luffing. It's a little bit more fun than having that big 5.5 on. That thing's pretty unruly, going downwind. So in general, when you're luffing, bigger front wing, smaller hand wing.
Yeah. And I like how you're calling it a hand wing, because a lot of the time people are using a smaller wing and then a bigger wing. It's like, which is the wing? Yeah,
which is the wing?
Too many wings.
We had that problem when Ken Winter, designed the first duotone foil wings. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to call this a foil wing. And I'm like, oh no, this is going to confuse the heck out of all of us, you know. And
Yeah.
sure enough, it's like the foil, the wing, da 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 da. It's like, oh, come on, Ken, you messed this all up. Now we got to call it a hand wing.
Yeah. Yeah. I call it a wing-a-ding, just a wing-a-ding and then a front wing. And then it's,
Yeah,
you know, you need some sort of difference, some point of difference.
yeah, exactly.
You get confused.
I usually say foil wing and hand wing.
Yeah, that's a good one. The other day when I was explaining what I did with the pump in my backpack, and I said to my mate Zane, I was talking about what I did, and he's like, and I said, oh, you know, and if I came down, I just pumped up, and he's like, oh yeah, like he said, I didn't see you go out with a paddle though, because like when you paddle, you got to pump up onto the foil, and I was like, oh no, I didn't pump up, I like kite pumped, I was like pumping the wing up.
Oh, that's another one to get confused.
That's another one. So we're talking about pumping, you know, pumping and then pumping the wingding up or pumping the foil up. And it was, you know, just we're like, oh, I don't know what anything is anymore. It was so confusing. What do I want to ask? About what was it? I had a good question. What size boards are you using when you're downwinding on the you know, with the wing? Actually, no, that was what I wanted to ask. What do you find that when you're winging with the down winging, do you find the wing gets in your way a little bit? Like, or what are you doing with it? Because I find in super windy conditions, and that's the reason I deflate, that the wing kind of makes me having to, if the wind's straight down the barrel, I've got to sort of run across a lot more and sort of zigzag more so that the wing stays downwind of me. Whereas when I go straight downwind on those big bumps, it's like I've got my blindfold on because the wing just is like right in the road.
Yeah, it does kind of get in the way a little bit. And it's some of the stuff too, you've got to, if you start getting your apparent wind and you start dropping in on a big bomb and there's not that much wind to keep your wing in front of you, you almost got to, like, you hold on it with one hand and then the other hand, you lift up the back edge of it to keep it from coming to you.
Yeah.
So you have two hands on it while you're riding a big bomb, you know? So there's a bunch of different things to learn when you're winging downwind. And that's one of them. It's like, if you got too much apparent wind, lift up the trailing edge so it doesn't collapse and come to you and get, you know, just backwind you.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I do when I'm riding downwind, you probably do the same thing, is if I'm going right, I put the wing in my left hand and I go that way. And then when I come back left, I switch my hand and go in my right hand and go left the other way.
Yeah.
Just so that it's kind of, you can balance this way. You know, it's easier to balance that way. Yeah. So when I go right, it's in my left. When I go left, it's in my right.
Yeah, because if you don't do that, it's you just that's what is that's why I haven't gravitated towards it fully, because I can paddle up downwind, so it's like, if I can get up downwind and not have a wing, then I can go wherever I want. Whereas when I have the wing, it's like I got to adjust. I put the wing over here, I put the wing over here. It's in my face. I got to lift it up over my head, and it's like all these little, tiny little adjustments. And if you don't know how to, if you can't paddle up, you wouldn't even notice that it's a nuisance. But if you know how to downwind without the wing, it's like, if only I could get rid of this thing, then I could just ride the bumps. And it's it's.
Some of the wings too, they luff better than other wings too. So, some of the ones like especially with the boom, it's harder to luff that thing with it. It tries to rock a little bit. It's great for racing around, especially upwind. But downwind, it doesn't luff as easy as some of the other wings. They kind of just sit a little bit easier than the ones with the boom.
Yeah, but like the weight of the boom sort of moves it around a little bit more too.
Yeah, there's something going on there with the boom and the dihedral or something. I'm not exactly. A lot of the other ones have dihedral that luff pretty well, so it's got to do maybe something. You could be right with the boom. I'm not sure. What I did when I used to ride duotone all the time, I would hold the wing with the middle one, and then I would touch it on the main bladder with my other hand so it couldn't rock. So when I was at the gorge and I'm ripping downwind, I would just stabilize that thing with the other hand. I didn't want it doing this while I'm in the middle of my turns and stuff.
No, it's terrifying. It really puts you off. And that's why I've gone to deflating it. Get it out of the way, put it under the arm like a rugby ball, and away you go. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun playing around with that. I was chatting to Matt Coe, so I want to get him on to chat to him. But he's starting to like he's calling it boogie foil downwinding. So he's got flippers and a little prone board, and he's literally kicking onto a bump and then jumping up to his feet and downwinding like that. And he hasn't successfully done it yet. So I'm like, we'll talk to you when you've done it successfully. But he said he got up yesterday in 15 knots, got up to his feet, and he went to try and take his fins off, and he fell down.
Oh, that sounds really tricky.
That's what I thought too. But his theory was, when you're downwind, you want a smaller board because a smaller board is less weight. So like if you're towing into bumps with a jet ski, it's really nice because you've got, a small board and you can use a slightly smaller foil and you can pump better. When we're supping or when we're winging, we're using these bigger boards that are, a little bit heavier marginally. And so therefore that's a disadvantage. So he's saying if I can kickboard a boogie board into a bump downwind and then get to my feet, then that's got to be better. And I'm like, I agree with his theory, but I said, talk to me when you've done it.
Yeah, I could see that. Sounds great in theory, but you got to be a heck of an athlete to be able to pull that off.
That's what I thought, from a little board kicking to jumping up to your feet to taking your fins off. To me, that's something pretty tricky.
Your fins off, that's got to be really tricky.
Yeah.
Take your fins off, don't lose them.
Yeah.
Get your feet in the right place. Oh, yeah, man.
On a little board too.
There's a lot going on there.
So, and he was saying that me deflating the wing that's a lot going on. And I said, well, not really. Anyone can deflate a wing, especially, you can deflate it in the water, but if you have enough time on foil, it's not that hard to just pull the deflate valve, and then you just the wing kind of just deflates and, just wrap it up under your arm and just, that'll do. Then you just hold on. Yeah. And so he was saying what I was doing was too hard. I was saying what he was doing was too hard. And we kind of both agreed that let's keep doing what we're doing, and then let's figure out a way to teach other people to do it, and then we'll go from there.
It's true though, what you say about going downwind. There's the people that have already learned how to do it. They really love to do it. They don't have the wing. They're free out there. They could surf wherever they want. We have a crew over here of about 10 people that they don't really want to go downwind winging because they spent all this time learning how to stand up downwind, and they just have so much fun doing it. They don't want to wing downwind.
Yeah, it's another skill set. And what I found is with the winging, I really love it when the wind direction isn't perfect. So when we get westerlies here, that's straight offshore. So we go into our like bays and sort of harbors, and you can do, what we do is we wing upwind because it's like a national park. It's hard to get up there. So wing upwind, and then you can either free wing down or you can pack down and paddle down or deflate and go down. And that's, it's like opens up another avenue, whereas you can't, you're not paddling upwind. Otherwise, you got to wait for a boat that comes, once a day, and it's a bit of a hassle. And the tides have got to be right and all this sort of stuff. And then when the conditions are good, when you get good southerlies or good northeasterlies, then I'll paddle because it's, it's straight along the coast and it's easy to access. But the wing just opens up all these avenues, and then obviously when the winds, we get these, northwest or southwest winds, and our beaches are sort of facing all these different directions. So surfing the wing in those funny direction winds, like offshore winds, is awesome because you literally pull off the wave and you just wing straight back out to the takeoff zone and then catch another wave and you pull off and straight. It's like having your own jet ski. When the wind's right, nothing's going to go wrong, it seems, and then all of a sudden the wind drops and you've got this wing and you've got this board and they're all useless and you've got to paddle your way in. But it's the carrot that is like having to catch all these waves, doing these loops is always, it's so worth it, because it's like I found myself so many times go out and the wind isn't strong enough and I'm trying to get going and there's all these people paddling into waves and I'm like, I should have just surfed today. But so what about the wing boards? Like I know you've worked on your wings, like the hand wings with GoFall, and you've come out with a bunch of boards now too. So you want to talk about those ones while we're here? Yeah,
the boards decided to come up with some wing boards because we have problems over here getting proper wing boards. There seem to be lots of wings, the hand wings coming out. There's lots of foils, but there's not like tons of boards to put them on. So we decided that we're going to make the whole package so that they can come straight to us and just buy, the hand wing, the foil, the board, and they're all matched together, to where you don't have to worry about stuff. You could call somebody and, hey, well, I'm feeling this. Well, what should I do? Show them exactly how you should set it up. Or if they're here, I could just jump on their board and go, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And this is how you got to learn to ride. Because some people, have their, they ride a little bit differently than what the norm does. So you try to educate them that this is what it should feel like. So get your feet a little more forward or whatever. But our boards we went 4-6 for their first run. It's going to be a 4-6, 5-0, 5-6, 6-0. Make it nice and simple. They're all 6 inches apart. And we're like at 45 liters, 85 liters, 105 liters, and 135 liters. So we're kind of spread it out. We're going to make, maybe some smaller ones in between the 44 and the 85 liters, maybe in the future, just because as we progress, you would think more of the wingers will get on smaller boards eventually. Yeah. Because it's more fun being on a smaller board, but shoot, some places you can't be on a smaller board. You're sinking, you're underwater. There's not a lot of reward on some days. On the good days, there's a lot of reward. On the bad days, there's a lot of suffering. So you got to have, stuff for everything. And we've got foot straps where you got options for 2 up forward, like you're on a windsurf wave board. So they're at 45 degrees, 1 in the back in the middle, or you can turn them sideways. Like if you just ride one direction, and you go toe side the other direction. So there's one more in the center, or if you're tried to ride it stand up foiling or something, or towing, you have, options for that also. And the first round of boards will all be a plate and a tuttle. So you can use whichever, because we've made lots of tuttles, lots of plates. And it's like, we didn't want to, the guy goes, oh, I wanted to have a plate. Oh, I wanted to have a tuttle. It's like, okay, never mind. On the first run, we'll put both of them on there. Mm-hmm. So that's the gist of the boards. The boards they're a little bit different. They're made to be a wing oriented board. So there's a lot of flotation up forward, because when the boards get shorter, if there's not a lot of thickness up forward, you end up sinking those boards. So when it's, really windy, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But when it's lighter, I like having a little more flotation up forward on a wingboard.
Makes sense. Yeah. And what you're saying about, like, I've just got in this new board that Marcus designed me. It's 410 and it's about 58 or 59 liters. I sink it and I can just up dive it. But to get going on a light day, it's possible, but I need a big hand wing.
Right.
I went out just yesterday on a 3 meter wing. It looked windy. I used a 3.5 meter wing and I probably would have gotten going on my floater. So like you talk about floaters or sinkers. On a floater, I probably would have got going on my 3-4 hand wing. Because I was sinking, I had to take out a 5 meter hand wing. So, there's you got to think about that extra bit of power just to, boost you up onto the surface.
You got to get up to the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, that's like, you're talking your 45 liter obviously is a sinker, and then your 85 liter obviously a floater. And that's, I like how that's been like the new terminology, is it a sinker or is it a floater? Like, this is my sinker and this is my floater. It's it's funny how the winging is going that way. We used
that terminology when we were windsurfing. There was, I'm riding a sinker today. It was a big deal, when we first started riding sinkers.
Yeah.
You had to water start them. There's no more of this up ball stuff.
Yeah.
Riding my sinker. So same thing is coming on with this winging.
Yeah, I like it. So I want to start wrapping up. So you can get on with your day and I can get started with my day. Let's finish up with a couple, like, I guess you've done probably more SUP downwind paddles than anyone else. And you've done a bunch of the wing downwinders too. So why don't you give us, a couple tips for both. So starting with the SUP downwind paddle, 2 tips for that, and then 2 tips for the hand wing downwind winger.
Okay, so with the stand up, if you're first learning how to do this, you want to make sure you have a fairly big board so that you can paddle it fairly well. Don't take something that's super small in the beginning. It's really hard to get up on these small boards. You got to be a really good paddler or catch a wave right at the right time. So make sure your board is, a really good paddler, and don't waste all of your energy on catching stuff that is not rideable. Try and figure out that, okay, when you feel the back of your board start going up, you're kind of like looking at the trough dropping out away from you. Try to go after that. That's the time to go. Don't wait too long, because you got to go at the exact second, go really hard. The other thing, once you get up, you've got to have a plan. So when you're first dropping in, you're like looking, going, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going that way. I'm going to follow that trough to the right. I'm going to follow it to the left. Have a plan, because in the beginning, what you're doing is, I just want to get up. You get up and you're like, oh, now I'm down. It's like you had no plan. So it's like, paddle, have a plan, catch it, get up, take off with that plan, and don't stop paddling. You got to go another 10 paddles or so and get your speed up before you can continue to keep going. You got to get a little bit of speed going. Don't just think that, hey, I'm up and it's all over. Go an extra, at least 5 or 10 paddles, follow it, and have a very good plan of to where you're going. The thing about stand-up paddling, everybody thinks it's like surfing. I'm going to drop in, I'm going to go into that trough, and I'm going to be riding that trough. No, it's about the wave face, and you're up high on it. A lot of times you're going sideways, and that's where the energy is, up high on these waves. It's not drop in on it and get out in front of it like you're surfing. It's more like, okay, turn, get up high, take that speed down the line, and that's where all the energy is downwind. And it's not these big giant waves. It's you're trying to catch these little ones, and there's a lot of energy there. You just don't realize it's there until you've done it a few times. You got to try and, okay, I got to find this energy off this little knee-high thing they're talking about. It's not possible. No, it is possible. You've got to learn how to stay high on these little knee-highs and keep it going. Dave is really good at this. Dave weighs 200, 210 pounds, and he can just stay up at the slowest speed by riding these little things. He would come inside the harbor, there's nothing there. And somehow he makes it to the ramp. I'm just gassed. I can't keep going. I don't know what he's doing. It's like, what's the secret? It's just about being in the right place on these little teeny waves. And you watch him, he doesn't go crazy, and pumping and to get to the ramp. No, he's kind of cruising. And it's like, the guy's a freak. What the hell is he doing? I don't know what he's doing. He's got magic.
So magic foil on.
Yeah, so in the beginning too, take a big foil, try and just concentrate on, I want to get up, see how far I can go. Get up, have a plan, stick to the plan, try to ride on the high side up from these troughs. And then you're zigging and zagging. When one runs out, take a left back the other way. If you're going right and it's running out of, look, kind of always keep your eyes open, because you got to have a plan. Where am I going? Where am I going? Where am I going? Run out of speed, turn, kind of accelerate your speed again. But when you turn, think of getting back up high again.
Yeah.
Up on that side of that wave. That's where the energy is. Don't just turn and go out in the flat, because it's all over. You're just going to go and bog down. So,
yeah, that's a really good tip. Once you get up, have a plan. And a lot of the time the plan is get across. And by going across, it allows the next bump to catch you up. And then all of a sudden you're up high on this bump. And when you're on that, then as you say, it's very rare that you go straight downwind.
Right.
When you're downwind foiling anything, only if you're like on a really big sort of ocean swell, but that's not what you're doing when you first start.
You're not doing that.
Across, hard right, hard left, and compared to like stand up or any other sport downwinding, when you're downwind on a canoe or a stand up, you're sort of doing like 30 degrees left, 30 degrees right. On a foil, you can go 90 degrees left, or even 100 degrees left and 100 degrees right. There's way more area to play with, and you've got to understand that, have your plan, and put that plan into action.
Yeah. The other thing is, if it all goes bad, you're running out of juice, you can't go left, can't go right, it's falling away from you. Look behind you upwind. And there's sometimes the next swell is there. So before you lose your speed, you have your plan that you'll start to get good at this. You'll feel that, hey, I'm losing speed. I got to do something real quick. You turn and go back upwind, get to where that wave face is, and then come back downwind sideways again. So don't always think forward, forward, forward. Sometimes you got to look back to find your next little bit of energy.
Yeah, that's definitely what I found is sometimes behind is the last option, or the second
last option.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, hey, don't wait too long for your options though. You got to have a little bit of speed. Otherwise, you lose everything.
Yeah.
Make that decision early. Don't wait till it's too late.
Yeah. You got to be. And actually, that's what Dave was saying. He's like, when you make a decision downwind foiling, you've got to stick to it, and you can't hesitate. If you think you got to go right, and then you think, oh no, I should go left, you're down. If you think you go right, if you think you go left, you go left. If you think you go straight, you go straight. And no matter what it is, you've got to commit wholeheartedly to that decision. If you don't, then you're going to be in trouble. Yeah.
Hesitation. You feel your foil. It's like all of a sudden it goes up, and then you feel it stalling, and it just comes down. A little hesitation to make the decision. It's like, oh, I feel that up. Oh no! And you're like, try to paddle, nothing. Boom, down.
Stall. And then, what about some tips for the downwind wingers?
The downwind wingers. The tip for that would be, if you want to race, you want to take the biggest wing possible, the smallest foil possible. If you want to try and luff down the coast and just surf it and have fun, you, in general, take a big front wing and a little bit smaller hand wing. That'll help you with being able to surf down the coast and have a lot of fun and be able to glide. So there's two different ways of doing that. And the other thing, you want to kind of be safe too. So take a phone with you. If it's a big run or something, take your phone with you in a waterproof case. Just get on Amazon or whatever and just get that waterproof case, because you never know when you're going to need it. If you flip upside down out there and you do something crazy, like I was too far offshore to swim in, put a hole in your wing, and you're like, oh no, this could be a long day. So that's a good idea, is to have your phone with you. Like when we stand up paddle downwind on the Maliko run, I always take my phone with me, just in case hey Carla, can you pick me up halfway? Or I'm done.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen anymore, but it used to early days.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Even still, sometimes I say to my wife Lana, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go all the way, Manly to Palm Beach, and then I get, halfway and the wind just is completely conked out, or it's, gone offshore, and I'll be like, I got to call her, Lana, can you pick me up at Newport? Because I'm not gonna make it. It's not gonna be.
Option. Be safe. Better to be safe. Some of our buddies over here even have an e-perb with them. Their wife made them get an e-perb.
I paddled with a flare the other day because I couldn't find my e-perb. I was like, I'm with the wing. If something goes wrong, I could, put a hole in the wing. I might be a long paddle. So, I couldn't find.
We're lucky over here because the wind's side shore or a little bit onshore. It's huge. Generally, we're not going to get, way offshore. But where you were at, especially if it's a little side off, it's like, hey, it's a big ocean if things go wrong.
Yeah, I lost a hand wing the other day. I was surfing a spot and I pulled off a wave, and the next one behind was way bigger, and I had nowhere to go, and the wind died on me. And this, 6-footer landed right on my head, broke the leash to my leg rope, broke the leash to my hand wing, and I'm sitting in the water like, now what? And the wind was like west southwest, and so long story short, I found the board, and then I almost got to the hand wing, and it just went tumbling out to sea, and gone. I was so bummed. There was no. It was a jet ski, and I waved him down, and he went left instead of right, and it's gone now. It was a sad story, but
no.
Yeah, I know to use a stronger leash next time, or just not try to duck dive a wave with my wing.
Yeah, you're paddling after. This happened to me the other day. You're paddling after your wing. A friend of mine lost his leash came off. Paddling after it, and then it just seems to take off right when you get to it. Yeah. It's like, boom! Now it's like 50 yards, and it's like pretty soon it's another 100 yards. And it
gets longer and longer.
No way to catch it.
Yeah, it's so hard. I was paddling after I got probably within 50 meters of it, and then all of a sudden it just went over a wave and it just took off and flipped about 5 times into the air. And I almost gave up, and I kept paddling again, and then I could still see it, but it was just kilometer away. And I'm like, it's a long way out to sea. What if I don't get it? And I looked back in, and I was already about, a kilometer out. So I was like,
oh my God,
I'm not going to do that. Cut my losses. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I would have quit a lot sooner than that. Getting a kilometer off the beach.
Well, where the wave is about 800 meters off the beach. So I hadn't paddled too far yet. It was just,
Catch a wave.
Yeah, the further you go, it's like surfing like uppers. You know, once
Yeah.
you imagine
way-
uppers in a like a southerly wind instead of a northerly wind. You know, so
Yeah.
yeah,
That's sketchy.
yeah, it's sketchy. So I should have known, but that's the risk you take for those waves. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
want
we-
to thank
do
you,
that
Alex.
The winds over here because we're kind of scared, you know, because it's kind of sketchy. But shoot, you're doing that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah, we don't have much wind a lot of the time. Like in winter, all our winds are offshore, so it's you
Yeah.
either go out or you just sit on the beach and do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strong leashes and a telephone.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks, Alex, for coming on. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you. It's been a little while since we've spoken, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how.
To the gorge.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch you guys at the gorge. We're not allowed to leave Australia. We're not allowed to leave Sydney at the moment, 10 kilometres from our home. So yeah, we're stuck here. I'll keep doing podcasts to catch up with everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good luck over there, and keep doing what you're doing, because I'm really enjoying all the gear you've been putting out, and excited to try some of the new stuff that you've been.
Yeah, you'll like the new stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, Alex, and speak to you next time.
All right, James. Nice talking to you. See ya.